Well, I guess if you start out strong, then you got to finish strong, right? And what I'm about to get into in this video is going to receive a lot of hate, a lot of anger, and it very well could be the end of us. And when I say that, I mean the end of us, the end of the Castaway couple, the end of this channel. But I really don't give a fuck, because it needs to be said. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to bag me out in the comments section below before even watching or hearing what I have to say. So while I pour myself this refreshing brew, I'll give you a chance to do that. The thing is, I really struggle to accept how naive, gullible, and shallow so many people are. Why do I say this? What's my point? Well, for those of you who haven't seen the video we made prior to this one, I suggest you go back and check it out just for a little bit more context, somewhere up here. Now in that video, I made this little mock montage at the start just to have a bit of fun and to set the tone for the video. And there was this one clip where it looked like I was taking a leak. Now, some people actually believed that it was real. And then it hit me. They genuinely thought that I'd recorded myself taking a piss on camera and uploaded it to YouTube. Like I'd really be that dumb. And what absolutely puzzles me is that these people couldn't even comprehend or consider for just 1 second that it might be fake. Nah. They just went with the most basic surface level interpretation as if critical thought isn't even an option. Now, this right here is the problem that I have with all of modern society. It's this inability to think critically or question what's presented in front of them. And it's exactly these shallow, narrow thinking people who seem to approach everything in their lives at the most surface level and just accept whatever is being spoon-fed to them.
Fuck vegetables, I want McDonald's!
Now, these are the same people who will believe anything they're told. You know, you show them a video of a cow farting and tell them that it's destroying the planet, and they'll just eat it up without even considering that maybe it's not the cows causing this climate catastrophe, but maybe it's something else. Maybe it has to do with the massive deforestation that makes room for wind turbines and solar farms, or the fact that the manufacturing process alone behind these technologies are far from green. But no, that possibly couldn't be it. You know, it's easier to blame the cows, an animal that's been around for hundreds of thousands of years living alongside the planet, than to look at the bigger picture. Now, I don't know if it's the convenience of blind ignorance or if it's people are just born mentally inept. But either way, this is the majority. This is most people, and this is the culture we live in. And it's one that's dominated by people who lack the intellectual capacity to question, to analyze, or even pause for a moment to consider alternatives. And this is why society is falling apart. This is why it's crumbling. This is why we're so easily controlled and oppressed, because the masses are quite frankly too stupid. Now, it gets even worse, because even intellectually capable people exacerbate this problem. You know, the people who know better, they often don't speak up, and studies have actually shown that if a smart person is in a group where the majority holds a different opinion, 90% of the time they'll just go along with the crowd. And not because they agree, but because they fear rejection or they fear the ridicule. And it's human nature to want to fit in, to be accepted socially. And this want is so inbuilt in us that we're willing to suppress our beliefs and opinions just to avoid standing out. Now, this is herd mentality, and herd mentality is fucking dangerous. And it's why things like the woke culture have been allowed to just spiral out of control. It's why we accept our slavery, our servitude, because the majority, the morons of this planet, are just totally okay with it. And the rest of us are too scared to stand against them. And that leaves a very small minority of people, the ones that actually have the guts to speak out, to speak the truth. But at this point, we're just beating a dead horse, because there's always going to be more ignorance than intelligence. Now, in our last video, we talked about how conditioned we are in the West. And to value things that in the grand scheme of things doesn't really hold any value. So most of you would know this concept, which was first coined by Ivan Pavlov, or Ivan, however you want to pronounce it. You know, you take a dog, you ring a bell, give him a treat, and over time the dog learns to associate the sound of the bell with food and starts salivating at the sound, even when there is no treat, even when there is no food. Now, apply that to the Western society, and specifically Australia, and the so-called wealth for toil narrative. So when Australia was first being formed, the government and the elite, the one percenters, had to create this illusion of opportunity. They gave the first generation the treat, you know, a real shot at building wealth through hard work and labour, intensity and grit. Now, the boomers, the silent generation, and those earlier generations were rewarded with things like affordable housing, job security. You could just pick and choose, out of work one week into a job in the next, and there was a clear path to success. But that was only to set the example, to condition future generations to believe that hard work automatically leads to prosperity. But the reality is now the treat is gone, and our generation keeps ringing the bell, working, toiling, trying to follow the same path, but the reward isn't there anymore. At least not as much. Why? Well, because it was never designed to fucking last. It was never designed to last. It's a tactical bait and switch. The reality is that wealth today doesn't come from toil. It comes from things like inheritance, nepotism. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And having a head start. Now, the idea that this land, that Australia is a land of equal opportunity, is just another form of conditioning. It's an illusion, and it's sold to us in order to prop up the rich, and it keeps the vast majority of us just running around in circles, and we're like those dogs. We're drooling at the idea of success that's no longer really attainable, and we're trapped in a system designed to exploit us while benefiting the elite. You know, and my wife and I, we have felt the pressures of this Western oppression. You know, this guilt-driven culture that makes you feel like you're doing something wrong for wanting a better life. You know, and they say things like, how dare you leave and improve your situation? Stay here and suffer with the rest of us, you know? Like, nonsensical comments. And to take it even further, like, who do these motherfuckers think they are to assume? Like, who are you? Who's to say that we're suffering here in Australia? Who's to say that we're not doing well? You know, and they just slam you with the only thing that they can use against you, which is, you're taking advantage of the poor people, you know, you're just a loser who couldn't make it in Australia, you're this, you're that, you're that, you're this. But no one even stops to think about the positive impact that our money has had in the Philippines. No one acknowledges how much our project and how much our spending overseas has helped local workers feed their families, or how we've helped to prop up local businesses, material suppliers, tool shops. That part just gets conveniently forgotten. Instead, we get comments like, do better. Do better? Like, what does that even mean? And these people automatically assume that because we're trying to build a life overseas, we must be failures. We must be failures here. But let's address the elephant in the room. Like, how many people can honestly say they have a decent chunk of money just sitting there, ready to spend on building a house? Sure, things are cheaper in the Philippines, don't get me wrong. But let's not kid ourselves. We didn't build a traditional Filipino-style home. Look at the caliber of the house. It clearly wasn't cheap. Granted, much cheaper than what you can get here. But you got to consider the value proposition. Now, I'm not going to reveal the exact cost just yet, because we are saving that for a dedicated cost to build video once everything is finished, and so it actually accurately reflects the total expenses. But I will say this, it costs several times more than the deposit for this house we have here in Australia. So put that into perspective. Now, if we're such losers, if we're such failures, how do we accomplish this? How do we accomplish this with no inheritance, no head start, no help, no handouts? Now, sure, there are people watching this right now who have 10 times more than we do, and honestly, good for you. Congratulations, that's incredible. I genuinely mean it, but the point here is this: there is no such thing as equal opportunity. Everyone's life circumstances are influenced by countless variables. Some we control, some we don't, many we don't, and we all have to play the hand that we're dealt. Some people are born with a royal flush, and no matter how hard you try to bluff, you'll never win, and that's just reality. Now, here's another thing many people don't think about. The continents we live on aren't floating lily pads on some great big pond. It's all the same patch of dirt. It's just one continuous rock, and the oceans just fill in the low spots. So, my question is, why does land here in Australia cost so much more than land in the Philippines? Especially considering Australia is 25.6 times larger than the Philippines. I looked it up, I verified it. 25.6 times larger than the Philippines. And to put that into perspective, that is 3 people per square kilometre in Australia and around 370 in the Philippines. So why are 500 square metre blocks just up the road from us starting at $349,000 while we got 850 square metres in the Philippines for 30k? Now, if your knee-jerk reaction is to say, it's economics, it's wages and poverty, Australia's economy is different, blah blah, then congratulations, because you just proven how much brain rot you have. These are man-made constructs. Guys, it's bullshit. It's arbitrary systems designed to serve only those at the top. Borders aren't real. Money isn't real. Its value only exists because we've been conditioned to believe in it. Stick a wad of cash in the ground and it's not going to grow into a tree that bears fruit. When birds migrate from northern to southern hemispheres, they don't pay migration taxes, they don't hire removalists, they don't buy land. It doesn't cost them a dime. You know, these systems just exist to oppress, to trap people in perpetual wage slavery, and to keep an ethereal economic machine turning, a machine that benefits only its designers. And let me give you a real world example. So, if you had the savings in Australia, a decent amount, you know, like what we had, and you could buy a modest piece of land that was priced fairly and build a small practical little home, an alternative way, maybe a couple of shipping containers or a tiny house or whatever, and you didn't need to pay all these council approvals and all these surveyors and engineers and inspectors and so on and so forth. If you could just create yourself a comfortable shelter according to your means, well, guess what? Most of that here is illegal. If it's a demountable building or if it's portable, can't stay on land for more than 12 months. You know, they put so much red tape about doing anything that is alternative, that is outside the conventional way of buying a house. They're punishing you for being poor. So most of that stuff is illegal. It's illegal. And unless you spend a hell of a lot of money making it legal, by which time you've run up the bill so much that it pretty much becomes a conventional house build anyway and becomes a conventional house cost. And to save the headache and the back and forth, the to and fro, most people just give up and they go, well, we may as well just buy a house. So just consider this. Option A, right? Take your hard-earned savings, all that time, all that effort, blood, sweat, tears, and you hand it over to the bank. You hand it over to a system that literally locks you in to 25 to 30 years of debt. So you sacrifice the majority of your life working to pay it off, ultimately paying twice what the house was actually worth when you bought it. Or option B, use your savings to build something you truly own. No debt, no dependence on a paycheck, actual freedom. Like, come on guys, seriously. Like, how hard do we need to get fucked up the ass with a giant rubber fist before we even realize that it's rape? And it's exactly this shallow-mindedness again, this inability for people to see beyond their own tiny little bubbles. You know, they define success the only way they know how, and it's by their narrow standards and by passing judgment without really understanding the bigger picture. And the sad truth of it is, most of us have more than we need. You know, we think we need things that we don't, and this is exactly what contributes to the consumerist epidemic. And it's not just me who's complicit in this, it's all of us. We buy into this culture of excess, believing that happiness comes from these things, and in doing so, we literally promote a system that forces others with fewer opportunities to miss out. And this is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. You know, leaving, downsizing, redefining my values. It has nothing to do with my ability to succeed or not in this country. I've succeeded by every conventional measure. I have houses, cars, toys, I can afford to go on trips, all this meaningless shit that doesn't really contribute to anything. And it's all these things that society tells you to aspire to, but it's meaningless. And I just think it's time that we all redefine what it actually means to live a good life. Now, it's not about how much you have or how high you can climb the ladder. It's about how you contribute, how you connect, and how you make the world a better place for others. We live in a careless world where most people couldn't care less about anyone outside of their own little bubbles, and even then, they only care about them because they serve some sort of selfish purpose. And this selfishness, this lack of empathy, is the real disease that's infecting the West. And I'm not just calling out others, I'm literally calling myself out too, because even though I'm trying to do better, I know I've been a part of the problem, but I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm done chasing things that simply don't matter. I'm done contributing to a system that destroys lives and communities. And if you want to yell at me, call me names, or lose your shit in the comments, then go right ahead, because it won't change the truth. And the truth is that we are a sick society. Consumerism is killing our communities, our souls, and ultimately our entire world. And unless we wake up and make a fucking change, we're going to destroy ourselves. Okay? We're going to destroy ourselves. No one that I speak to says, oh, the world's getting better. All this is getting better. They can't see how it's going to get better. All they can see is it's getting worse. So, look, that's all I really have to say. If you like this video, if you can relate, then drop your comment in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe. Or don't. I really don't give a fuck. Because I'm not here doing this for popularity. I'm doing this to expose the truth, and I'm doing this to hopefully be a voice for those less fortunate and those who may not have one. So until the next one, guys, see you around.